Today didn't really fit the subtitle of birding the Riviera Maya, because today we were leaving it and crossing the Yucatan to the north coast and the famous Rio Lagartos. We were traveling with a guide, Stephen, his driver Elias and 3 other clients, and had been picked up at the gate of our hotel at 4:40 a.m. The aim was to get to a little town, Kikil, on the road to Rio Lagartos, just as dawn was breaking. Stephen promised lots of birds at this site. He wasn't wrong. As the light improved, the birds arrived, including this summer tanager taking a breakfast of berries from a tree near the old church. A truck running into the fields from the side of the church was very active. Brown-crested flycatcher, lots of indigo buntings and scrub euphonias, blue-grey gnatcatcher, northern parula, rose-breasted grosbeak, rose-throated bicard. It was hard to know where to look first.
There's also a female rose-throated.
Of course we were not short of melodious blackbirds, great-tailed grackles, social flycatchers, and kiskadees. A treat was a turquoise-browed marmot who came to check us out. I took a quick snap of a bird. It wasn't identified until much later as a female rose-throated tanager, a Yucatan endemic and a lifer. Unfortunately, only one of us saw it. As the warmth of the day increased, so also did the number of birds. One small bush held social flycatchers, a cinnamon-bellied saltator, a rose-breasted grosbeak and even a blue-grey tanager, the only one of this species that we were to see. Time to move on towards Rio Lagartos, via a little road that led to San Juan del Rio. This was a known site for a couple of birds we were really keen to see. The more open country was good for birds like the gorgeous vermilion flycatcher, lesser goldfinch, more scrub euphonias and blue-grey grassquit. A very obliging ladder-backed woodpecker flew into a small tree and even posed briefly for photos. More vermilion flycatchers, male and female. It was odd to think that the last vermilion flycatcher we had seen was a female, last autumn in southwest Nova Scotia. It actually didn't take us long to find our first lifer here, the endemic Yucatan Wren, but the views were distant. Luckily, closer and better views were subsequently obtained. It's always good to get a lifer, especially nice views of one. So what about our second quarry? We were also looking for lesser roadrunner here, a Mexico endemic. Unfortunately, we were not to be lucky this time. Still, you can't win them all. Time to climb back aboard the very comfortable van and head on, via a roadside pool which held a Moilet's crocodile. We reached Rio Lagartos around midday. We headed to the water and a boat ride. Our boatman, William, was very knowledgeable about the local birds. Of course, everybody who comes to Rio Lagartos is keen to see the star birds, American flamingo, so we headed out to a small group feeding actively on a sandbank. They weren't shy. The feeding technique involved puddling the sand with their feet to release small invertebrates from just under the surface. It seemed to be working. Of course, taking photos and video from a small boat on the river and in the teeth of a brisk breeze wasn't simple. Some of the videos in this section are distinctly bouncy. The blaring in the foreground of this video is due to these guys, two laughing gulls hitching a ride. It seems that the tourist boats can get pretty close to the flamingos. Luckily, it's not just about flamingos. We also enjoyed views of American oystercatcher, willet, brown pelican, and American white pelican. Some of the white pelicans were just starting to attain breeding plumage, with just a hint of the knob forming on the top surface of the bill. The sandbanks in the middle of the river were full of birds. Neotropic and double-crested cormorants, laughing gulls, ring-billed gulls, even the odd herring gull. Black skimmers loafed on the sand. Royal and sandwich terns joined in too. It's always good to be among the birds. A lone Caspian tern occupied a patch of sand. Sandwich tern, with its distinctive shaggy crest and black bill with yellow tip, associated with gulls, skimmers and royal terns. White ibis foraged amongst the roots of the black mangroves. Common black hawks lived up to their name, being both quite common and blackish. They gave good views when perched in the mangroves at the edge of the river. It's not just about the rarities. Great blue heron, great egret, snowy egret and little blue herons were regular species for us, but good additions to the trip list. The boat was being particularly bouncy here. It was nice to see good examples of both plumage forms of little blue heron, the pristine white of the juvenile and the dusky blue adult. We motored down to the mouth of the river, where it opens out into the Gulf of Mexico. A fine osprey was perched here, and the breakwaters were covered in herons, cormorants, pelicans, and terns. The royal terns perched, in a line on top of the wall, were particularly photogenic. Tricolored heron is a less regular sighting for us. This bird shared its mangrove roots with mangrove yellow warbler, which is just a subspecies of yellow warbler but looks strikingly different, and a northern raccoon. Subadult magnificent frigate birds have a beautiful white head and pale bill and look quite different to the dark-headed adults. This one was enjoying a rest, a preen and a stretch on poles set into the center of the river on a sandbank. When it took flight, it flew down to a group of squabbling laughing gulls on the sand below and promptly stole the gulls' lunch, a fish. None of them were about to quarrel with a frigate bird. Eventually it was time to head back to dry land. We had ordered our lunch at a waterside cafe before setting out, and it would be ready for us on our return. Very civilized and delicious. Coming back to Rio Lagartos and looking forwards to lunch. Our other life I want was a hummingbird, found almost exclusively on this northern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. Stephen had a sight with was almost guaranteed, he said. It was a small house in the town, with a tiny yard festooned with hummer feeders and, yes, our quarry was there. Several tiny, beautiful, Mexican sheartails, so named for the deeply forked tail of the male, were attending the feeders and perching on the walls surrounding the yard. Males and females were present. We were very grateful to the householders for allowing us to enter their yard to enjoy these wonderful birds. As we stood in the yard, a lesser yellow-headed vulture also flew overhead. Not a lifer, but good to see nonetheless. We had to head back towards Tulum, which we were to do directly, except for occasional stops for birds, like this obliging laughing falcon at the side of the road. It was going to be quite a late return, especially for Elias, who had been driving us since the wee small hours of the morning. As we pulled up outside the gate of our hotel at 6:30 p.m, and in rapidly fading light, we were surprised by a small flock of leased sandpipers and some killdeer feeding on the lawns in front of the gate. A couple of final day trip ticks to finish off an excellent day's birding. So how did we do? Well, 113 species seen on the day was pretty good, we thought, including 2, or for one of us, 3, lifers. It was well worth the unfeasibly early start. Our thanks are due to our guide, Stephen, of Birding with Stephen, his trusty and eagle-eyed driver Elias, our boatman William, the smiling proprietor and staff of El Perico Marinero, and our fellow birders, Maria, Christina and Alan. Thanks for a wonderful day.